The stars above Earth had never looked closer, or more unforgiving. From orbit, Elias Harlan watched his home planet shrink in the viewport of the diplomatic carrier Unity 1. The blue curve of oceans fading beneath storm-swirled clouds should have brought him peace. Instead, it brought silence. Not the comforting kind, but the kind that wrapped around his ribs and pulled. "Approaching Crucible Station," the pilot said, voice tight, synthetic. She hadn't spoken since they passed the Kuiper Belt. Elias didn't answer. He stared at his reflection in the glass. A man in his mid-30s stared back, tired eyes, faint scars along his jawline, and a silver streak through dark hair that hadn't been there before the Martian campaign. UN Special Forces once called him Havoc. Now, he was Earth's last card on the table. The Crucible hung in space like something forged by gods who loved war. A floating citadel 10 kilometers in diameter, it orbited a dying red supergiant like a predator circling prey. Dozens of shipdocks clung to its outer rings, while its core pulsed with energy signatures too strange for any Earth sensor to decipher. The Galactic Accords Arena, where species proved their worth, or vanished from relevance. "Docking complete," came the voice again. Elias stood, collected his pack, and stepped into the unknown. The station's interior resembled no human design. Tall arches made of living metal undulated gently, like breathing lungs. Bioluminescent plants grew along ceilings. He passed under the gaze of insected guards, four-armed sentries in obsidian armor, their expressions unreadable. Around them, spectators of 100 alien races wandered. No one applauded. No one welcomed him. One whispered, "The Terran? They sent one?" A shrill voice echoed from the shadows. "Primitive meat!" He ignored them. He was trained for pressure, bred in the chaos of failed colonies and insurgent fire. But this was different. He wasn't here for tactical victories or extraction ops. He was here to survive, and to make sure Earth did, too. A tall, reptilian creature stepped forward. Adorned in official crimson robes, its voice rasped through a translator pinned to its scaled neck. "You are Elias Harlan of Earth." "I am," Elias said. "You understand the rules?" "I survive. They die." A flicker of amusement passed over the being's face. "Crude, but accurate. Your first match is scheduled in 1 rotation. I'll be ready." As he was escorted to his chamber, a minimalist hexagonal pod with no bed, no comforts, Elias thought of the video message that came just before departure. It had been from the UN General Council, dozens of representatives crammed into a single frame, speaking as one. "If you fall, Earth surrenders all sovereignty. We become a protectorate. We bow, Elias. But if you win, Earth joins the accord as equals." He didn't reply then. He just stared at the camera and nodded. 1 rotation later, the Crucible roared to life. Elias stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by an invisible dome of atmosphere while beyond it floated the void. The architecture shifted constantly, columns rising, platforms sinking, weapons embedded in walls too alien to comprehend. The gravity here pulsed in uneven waves, subtly disorienting. Designed to throw off non-native combatants. A trill swept the crowd. From above, his opponent descended in a shimmering tank of levitating fluid. Zathra. A translucent jellyfish the size of a rhino, its bulbous form pulsed with neon hues. Dozens of tendrils hung like threads of light, twitching with psionic energy. The announcer's voice, translated through every species' language, declared, "The psionic sovereign of the Wylel Hive. Slayer of 59 champions." Elias cracked his knuckles. "Well, I've always hated seafood." The arena shifted again. Walls pulled back. Water surged in, rising to his shins. A low hum pierced his skull, Zathra's mind, pressing in like static. He gritted his teeth. The psychic attack hit like a migraine forged from a sledgehammer. He moved fast. No time to adjust. He leapt onto a rising platform as one of Zathra's tendrils lashed out, slicing the air where he'd stood. Elias rolled and pulled a charge from his belt, a concussive flash bomb modified for electroshock. He didn't know if it would hurt the creature, but it was all he had. He triggered the bomb mid-leap. Light exploded. The tank's levitation failed momentarily, and Zothra collapsed into the arena's water layer. Furious shrieking echoed inside Elias's skull. The arena responded by unleashing jets of high-pressure fluid from the walls, spinning the combatants in a cyclone. Elias, half-drowned and bleeding from the ears, noticed something: metal struts. The frame beneath the arena was exposed by the surge. He dove for them. Reaching into his combat harness, he pulled two cables, ends frayed, one end already patched to a magnetic clamp. In the chaos, while the jellyfish flailed and tendrils sparked, Elias attached both leads to opposite struts. Then he screamed, "Come get me, you gelatinous bastard!" Zothra surged forward. The moment it touched the cables, Elias kicked the temporary battery pack hidden beneath the platform. The current surged. Blue-white electricity danced across the water's surface. The alien shrieked, not in the mind, but aloud this time. Its glowing center spasmed violently, then darkened. Steam hissed up from the tank, and the air was filled with a sharp, burning stench. Silence followed. Then, the arena lights dimmed in acknowledgement. Winner Earth. Back in his chamber, Elias sat shirtless on the cold floor, cleaning a burn wound across his ribs. A faint click behind him. "I don't have a weapon," he said without turning. "So if you're here to finish me, make it quick." "Not here to kill you," said a soft, accented voice. He turned. A lithe figure with glowing veins and chitin-like armor stepped forward, Urine, a medic class from the symbiote species. "Just here to stitch the human," Urine added. "I didn't request aid." "You didn't have to." "I volunteered." Elias eyed her cautious. "Why?" "Because you're the first one who didn't win with claws or acid or brute strength." "You thought." "That's rare." She lifted a small, humming device. "And because you're going to need help. Your next opponent won't be this easy." "I wouldn't call this one easy." Urine smiled. "You're bleeding from your ears and your liver is bruised. I'd say you did well, for a mammal." He let her tend the wounds. When she finished, she handed him a vial of glowing blue liquid. "For the pain," she said. He held it up. "Thanks." As Urine turned to leave, she paused at the door. "Do not trust the Ilari. Their champion, he plays with different rules." The door slid shut behind her. Elias leaned back against the cold wall. He didn't fear pain or death. But the thought of failing Earth, of dooming it to slavery, that haunted him more than any enemy ever could. He stared at the hologram of Earth on the wall. "I've got one shot," he whispered. "Let's make it hurt." Sleep came in fragments, broken by the screams of ghosts. Elias sat upright, chest heaving, sweat trailing down his spine. The chamber lights adjusted to his breathing, dimming as his pulse steadied. He wasn't truly here. His mind was back on Mars. The cave-in? The bodies. His squad screaming under collapsing rock and plasma fire. "You left us," a voice whispered. He stood quickly, blinking it away. That wasn't real. None of it was real anymore. Only the crucible was real now, and it didn't care about memory, guilt, or regret. It cared only for spectacle and survival. The next arena was colder. Literally. Elias stepped into a frost-covered amphitheater, jagged ice formations lining the walls, and a bitter wind cutting through the pressurized air. A faint hiss echoed across the chamber as the rack emerged, first as mist, then a writhing cloud of metallic specks that shimmered like broken glass. Opponent, the rack hive, collective intelligence, devourer of organics. No form, no face. Just a swarm. Elias immediately switched his visor overlay to thermal. Useless. The rack radiated no heat. He tried sonar mapping, only a blur of noise. The swarm moved like smoke at first, then struck with terrifying speed. Razor-edge motes sliced at his armor. He ducked, rolled, and hurled a fragmentation mine behind him. The blast scattered the rack, but they reformed within seconds. One cut sliced his neck guard. Another grazed his thigh. His suit auto-injected a coagulant, but he could already feel the sting of infection trying to set in. Microbial weapons, nasty. Thinking fast, Elias scanned the environment. Sub-zero air. Ice pillars. Pressurized vents. He sprinted toward a control panel embedded in a wall. Alien glyphs lit up beneath his gloves, unintelligible, but patterns were patterns. 3 inputs. 1 blinking red. He slammed the red input. Suddenly, a thick burst of nitrogen gas jetted from the floor. The temperature plummeted further. The rack hesitated, slowed slightly in motion. Elias grinned. You like cold? Let's go Arctic. He yanked a plasma cartridge from his belt, cracked it open, and jammed it into the vent valve. The resulting chemical reaction triggered a shockwave of liquid nitrogen across the arena floor. The rack tried to retreat, too slow. Their particles clumped, froze mid-motion, forming grotesque, jagged shapes. He ran forward and delivered a full-power kinetic stomp, shattering the frozen swarm into shards. No movement. No reforming. Silence. Winter Earth. Elias slumped against the arena wall, armor punctured, breath ragged. 2 med drones approached, scanning his vitals. Save it, he muttered, pushing himself upright. A voice buzzed in through his helmet. Return to quarters. Council summons to follow. Immediate. The council chamber was a cathedral of power. A circular chamber, lined with towering representatives from the Galactic Accord's dominant species, each elevated on translucent platforms. Rexerthal stood center stage, arms folded across his armored chest. He looked like a hybrid of predator and executioner. 10 feet tall, plated in living metal, eyes glowing red with unnatural calm. Elias stepped forward, still sore, still bleeding. Champion of Earth, a serpent-like emissary said. You are granted audience before your final match. Rexer sneered. So this is the ape. Elias met his gaze. So this is the oversized trash can. Several aliens murmured in shock. Rexer stepped down from his platform, closing the distance until he towered over Elias. I have killed the champions of worlds that would melt your sun. You're a dying world's last gasp. Elias didn't blink. You bleed? I do. Then I can kill you. Rexer's expression didn't change, but the subtle twitch in his jaw said enough. A chime ended the council session. The final match will commence in 2 rotations. All challenges prior to the duel are forbidden. Tampering will result in planetary sanctions. As the chamber cleared, a figure caught Elias's eye, Urine, standing in shadow, her expression unreadable. Back in his quarters, Elias scanned his armor. Deep gouges from the rack battle. The thigh wound hadn't closed. His ribs ached with every breath. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Motion in the corner. He ducked as a drone zipped past, twin needles extended. Another followed, silent, sleek, black as shadow. Elias rolled, grabbed a loose panel from the floor, and slammed it into the drone's side. Sparks flew. The second came from behind. He caught it midair, jammed its needle back into its own core. It spasmed and collapsed. He stood in silence, the hum of static filling his ears. Assassins? Here. Not during the fight. Before. He scanned their remnants, no obvious signature, but a faint marking etched into one of the drone chassis. A crest. He photographed it and ran it through his database. Alari Dominion. Rexer's crest. So much for rules. Urine arrived not long after, summoned by Elias's emergency alert. She examined the scene, brow furrowed. This was not sanctioned, she said. No kidding. You need to report this. To who? The same council protecting him? She didn't answer. Elias dropped onto the chamber bench, exhaustion weighing his limbs. They cheat, he said flatly. They always have, Urine replied. But no one's ever challenged it. You just patch up the ones who lose. She flinched. I didn't volunteer to be a cog in their war machine. Silence hung for a moment. Then Elias asked, Why are you helping me? Her voice was quiet. Because I want to see something different win. Something that fights not because it was engineered to, but because it chooses to. He looked at her, eyes searching. There was no lie in her face. They're afraid of you, she added. Why? Because I don't play by their rules? No. She stepped closer. Because you remind them that they made the rules, and someone like you might break them. Later, a data burst from Earth arrived, a rare, limited connection. A message from General Rafik, commander of Earth's Accord delegation. Intel confirms if you lose, Earth becomes an Ilari protectorate. No trade rights. No independent military. Full compliance. Another cut-in, schoolchildren cheering in a classroom in Nairobi. Go, Elias! They shouted. Make them remember Earth! Then static. Elias sat alone in the silence afterward, staring at the image frozen on the wall. Dozens of small faces, smiling at a screen, believing in a man they'd never met. He stood, breath calm now, pain pushed aside. The Crucible was just another battlefield. And he'd been walking into those since he was 17. He pressed his thumb to the chamber terminal. Confirm readiness for final match. The voice asked. Confirmed, he said. And your designation? He stared at the screen. Elias Harlan. Human. And still breathing. The chamber sealed behind him. He didn't look back. Elias stood alone at the edge of the Crucible's final arena, encased in silence. There were no cheers, no introductions, no ceremonial declarations. Just the heavy breath of anticipation from billions of distant eyes. The battlefield shimmered before him, a floating platform suspended in a void of stars, fragmented into rotating pieces of jagged obsidian. Gravity pulses ebbed and twisted across each surface, pulling and repelling like waves crashing in reverse. Between the platforms, open space, bottomless, cold. Death waited between every breath. He tightened the gauntlet on his right arm, the fabric scorched from his last encounter. His lungs still burned, ribs cracked. A shard of bone shifted when he moved. He had no painkillers left, just grit and what little adrenaline his body could still produce. Urin's voice echoed in his memory. You'll need this. It's illegal. Use it anyway. The Nova steel blade hung across his back, forged from a metal born in a dying star, sharp enough to split carbon bonds. It was a last gift, and he didn't ask where she got it. He'd take any edge now. A deep thrum shook the platform as Vrexer descended. The Ilari champion landed with force, a kinetic ripple warping the nearest platform beneath him. His armor, laced with dark matter plating, glowed with faint red lines pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. His claws were retractable blades. His eyes, two pits of furnace-red hatred, never blinked. Elias faced him, silent. You could have died quietly, Vrexer said, voice deeper than thunder. Instead, you came here. To fail in front of the galaxy. You talk a lot, Elias replied. Let's see how well you bleed. A siren wailed. The final duel began. Vrexer moved first, a blur of armored power leaping across gravity-suspended stone. Elias barely rolled aside as a claw swiped through air where his head had been. Sparks flared from the impact. The gravity shifted suddenly beneath his feet, yanking him sideways. He twisted mid-fall, grabbing the edge of a platform with one hand, swinging up in time to dodge a second strike. This wasn't a duel. It was war physics made personal. Elias activated a pulse mine and flung it behind him. It exploded mid-air, destabilizing the gravity on the nearest rock. Vrexer stumbled, just a half-second. Enough. Elias charged. His blade met Vrexer's forearm. Sparks burst as steel met exoskeletal plating. The Nova steel gouged a shallow mark, red blood bubbled out, hissing where it touched the surface. Vrexer hissed. You brought a toy to a god's duel. Elias didn't respond. He dropped low, swept Vrexer's leg, and ducked into a gravity flip. The arena tilted again, rotating both fighters sideways. Vrexer launched a plasma dart. Elias deflected it with the flat of his blade, spinning mid-air to land on a vertical plane. His body screamed at him to stop. Every joint, every tendon stretched to breaking. But he moved anyway. He'd stopped fighting for survival. Now, he was fighting for Earth. Vrexer adapted fast. The next attack was a feint, high claw, low sweep. Elias parried, but a kick drove into his ribs. He felt something break. He flew across the platform, crashing into a jagged wall. Blood filled his mouth. "Stay down," Vrexer growled. Elias spat onto the floor, wiped the blood from his chin. "You first." Vrexer lunged. Elias sidestepped, using his own momentum to roll across a gravity seam. He reached into his belt and triggered the preset charges he'd hidden earlier, small gravitic disruptors attached to anchor nodes across the arena's lower platform. The field buckled. A low rumble shook the void. "You rigged the battlefield?" Vrexer roared. "Damn right." The platform beneath Vrexer flickered, then collapsed into a crushing gravitational pulse. A black well formed, warping light, dragging chunks of arena stone and Vrexer's weight into itself. Vrexer resisted, bracing himself, but the field wasn't designed for a being of his mass. His right arm was pulled into the well. Metal groaned. Bone cracked. Elias sprinted, ignoring every protest from his broken body, leapt, and drove the Nova steel blade down into Vrexer's exposed side. The blade slid in halfway. Vrexer screamed, blood erupting like steam. He swung his remaining arm wildly, throwing Elias across the platform. Elias hit hard, vision flashing white. He didn't rise. The arena dimmed. Silence. Then a step. Elias stood. Staggering. Breathing fire. He limped forward, blade gone, hands bloodied, face smeared with soot and ash. He stopped at the edge of the platform, where Vrexer writhed, half pulled into the gravity well, half destroyed, armor cracked open, blood leaking into vacuum. "You can't win," Vrexer gurgled. Elias looked at him, chest heaving. "I already did." Then, he kicked Vrexer fully into the well. The Alari champion vanished into the singularity. Gone. The lights across the crucible flared white. Match complete. Victor Earth. Elias collapsed. When he woke, it was to the smell of sterile gel and the whisper of machines. "Still breathing," someone murmured. "Urine." She leaned over him, adjusting a drip. He tried to speak, but she stopped him. "Don't move. Your body needs time." He blinked once. The ceiling wasn't the crucible. It was a med bay. Earth standard. Real, familiar. "You made it," she said. Earthspin admitted. "You should have seen it. Accord reps panicking. Alari sanctioned. Trade routes opened. The whole galaxy's watching Earth now." He coughed, and it hurt. "I kicked his ass." Urin smiled. "You did more than that. You changed the rules." Weeks passed. He healed slowly. Nerve regeneration. Muscle recovery. The scars would stay. One morning, a screen flickered on beside his bed. Earth's first interstellar vessel launched from orbit. Sleek, beautiful, and fast. The Harlan. Elias stared, silent. A young pilot, a girl maybe 20, saluted into the camera before launch. "We're heading to the stars. Because you showed us we could." He smiled, just a little. Not for the cameras. Not for the council. Just for himself. Earth was free. And the galaxy would remember the man who bled stars to make it so.